Well, happy Father's Day. And once again, we're back to our series. What's the title of the series? Wings to Fly. Last week, you heard from the Right Reverend Mike Pileggi about flying in formation. How many of you are here for that, huh? Flying in family formation. And today we're going to follow with a teaching that is specifically designed for dad. So dad, this is for you. And we're going to continue talking about the continuation of the pattern of roots and wings. Remember last month for Mother's Day, we talked about what? Maternal roots, okay? And the mother is the figure that brings stability to the home, but the father is the one that brings what? Adventure. We're the ones that have to teach our children to fly. We're the ones that have to give them wings to fly, and because of that, today we're going to be talking about Daddy being the launching pad. Daddy is the launching pad. Can you guys say that? Daddy is the launching pad. Okay, I didn't hear it very well. Come on, everybody. Daddy is the launching pad. And so I want to start out with a contest. I love games. And so I'm going to ask for my 2 volunteers to come. Where are they? All right, come on. No, you're too eager, Beaver, man. We already got this set up. This is a reality show. Everything's already set. All right? And so, come on, guys. Come on. This is going to be fun, okay? And we don't have much time to do it. And so what we're going to do is we are going to demonstrate how a launching pad makes a difference in your life. So can you guys jump? Yes. All right, I want to see both of you jump. Huh? Oh, yeah? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. One of you is going to have a little advantage, and it's going to be this, okay? Now, do you know how to do this? Huh? What is this? It's a trampoline. Okay, now who wants to get on the trampoline? Raise your hand. Okay, so then you volunteered. All right, so then you get to be on the trampoline. Well, it's okay. Your mama said yeah. Huh? Okay, you know how this works? Here, let's give it a practice gun. Yeah, oh, wow, you know how to do this, okay? So here's what the contest is, okay? The contest is we're going to have a contest to see who can jump higher, right? And so you are going to jump right where you are. How high can you jump? Huh? Come on, jump. Huh? All right, so when I say 1, 2, 3, then you're going to start doing it. When I say 1, 2, 3, you're going to go. And then the audience is going to decide who the winner is, right? Okay, you ready? Are we guys ready? Now, 1, 2, 3, go. Let's see who can jump the highest. Come on. Whoa, that was a whoop. All right. Did you do it? You got the hang of it? Huh? All right, let's give him a hand. Yeah, which one jumped higher? Did you jump higher? No? Huh? Okay, let's see if you can jump. You want to do it on a trampoline? Okay, go, come on. Huh? No, jump. Woo! Oh, no, you got to balance out. Yeah, the glass is falling and everything. You got to balance out this dangerous stuff. Huh? All right, let's give him a hand. All right, girls, thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Now, this isn't rocket science. You figured that if you have a trampoline, you're definitely going to be jumping higher than if you did not have a trampoline, okay? And so what we're trying to talk about today is the idea that fathers are the trampolines in the lives of their children. What happens is you can still jump without a trampoline, but come on. When you have the trampoline, doesn't it make a difference? And I'm sure that if we had a little bit of time, these kids would be hitting the roof, okay? And so keep that in mind and watch this video now.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
of a rocket taking off is breathtaking. And everyone's looking at the rocket, and everybody's keeping their fingers crossed because they want that rocket to get off the ground and fly, and we forget the importance of the launching pad. Did you see the parts just breaking off? Did you see how that launching pad provided the stability, it provided the support, it provided the initial resources for this rocket to take off? And so today, that is the idea that we want to convey. The children of the world need their daddies to be the launching pads so that they can succeed in life. There's nothing like watching that rocket fly. There's nothing like watching your children become successful adults in the world that we live in. That is every father's dream. And so, how do we get to that? How can we be the launching pads that our children need? Well, the Bible gives us great example of this principle in the lives of King David. And we've all heard about King David, who is the example of the father, and of Solomon, the example of the son. There's no denial in history that both of these men were great men. And so we look at their lives to see how the difference that a launching pad made. For example, we see Solomon's life, and we're going to see that Solomon had everything prepared for him so that he could succeed. And then you can see David's life, and notice that it wasn't as easy for him. In fact, according to the Bible, it seems like David's dad, Jesse, was not really there for David when he needed him to be the launching pad that he needed to take off the way that God wanted him to do that. And so perhaps David learned from his father's negative example, but the reality was that Solomon was prepared to go much farther than his father during his reign. And so how did this happen? And so I want to share with you specific reasons from the Bible, from the passage that Alejandro read, about the success of Solomon and how it was dependent on the platform that David provided. The first thing that we're going to talk about is that David provided resources for Solomon. David, the father, provided resources for Solomon, the son. Now, this is something that it fluctuates. Sometimes fathers are absentee, and so what resources does the son get? None. Sometimes fathers are helicopter parents, and then what does the son get? Too many resources. Now, what happens is that there is a required need for resources, and each one varies according to the person. And when you look at the passage, starting in verse 5, we say that David understood the situation of his son. He said, my son Solomon is what? Young and inexperienced. And the house that is to be built for the Lord must be exceedingly great and famous and glorious in all the lands. Therefore, I must make provision for it. So David made lavish preparations for it before his death. And so I want you to understand several things that are in that little passage that we just read. First of all, the person. The person. Who's the person that we're talking about? Solomon. And so Solomon was what? Young and inexperienced. And what happens when you're young and inexperienced? That's when you make mistakes. And you make mistakes that affect you for your whole life. And so it's important that we understand our children. We understand that they are young and inexperienced, and that's what they're supposed to be. That's the stage in life that they're in when they start out. Many of us treat our children like adults. And we think that we're doing them a favor when in reality they are young and inexperienced. And so we need to be able to resource them for the success that they're going to have. And so we have to understand the person that we're dealing with. We're not dealing with a robot. We're not dealing with a person that understands where they're going. We're dealing with a young adult that is facing the world and has no clue of which direction they're going to go. And so parents have to provide the foundations, and fathers in particular have the job of being the launching pads. And this is something that we can't take away from fathers. And so the father has to understand the son. In other words, there has to be a resource of relationship, okay? Now, the project is also important. What was the project that they were talking about? Building the temple. That sounds so easy. We're going to build the temple. Well, what temple were they building? At the end of the story, they built Solomon's temple. Now, notice it wasn't, David is the one that dreamed it up. David is the one that provided the resources for it. David was the one that provided the planning, and it was always known as Solomon's temple. And I can just see David, looking down from heaven and going, man, my kid, he really did it. And so Solomon's temple was known in the ancient world as one of the 7 wonders of the people of that time. Imagine, it was a beautiful, it was incredible. We still don't know exactly what it looked like, but it was amazing. And so how did Solomon get to finish such a project? Well, because he was prepared by his father, who became the launching pad for that project. And what about the plans? Do you actually believe that Solomon, a young man, came up and said, you know what, I'm going to build one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And how am I going to do that? Well, let me think. All right, let me go ahead and start writing. I'm going to get ideas. What happened was that David had already been thinking, had already been cooking up the plans for this temple for years. God had revealed a vision to him of where it was going to be, what it was going to look like, what he was going to need. And so David had done all of these preparations so that Solomon could build the temple. I seriously doubt that Solomon could have built anything that looked like the temple that he built if David had not provided the plans. And so here's something for you. How many of you have actually sat down with your children and said, hey, let's talk about plans? What are we going to build? Are we going to build a doghouse? Or are we going to build a temple? What are we going to build? Where are we going to go? Are we going to go to the corner? Or are we going to go to Jupiter and back? And so what happens is that fathers forget that they have to help their children to get the plans that they need to succeed in the projects that they will be established in. And so David did that. And David also provided the path. Okay? Now, if you know the path, what happens? Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. And so when you know that you have to follow the yellow brick road to get where you need to go, what do? You follow the yellow brick road. Now, what happens when there's no yellow brick road? Okay, I've heard parents say this, hey, I had it hard. I had to deal with it myself. I didn't even know what I was going to do. And look at here, I've bumped and grinded, and I've done this and that. And well, you're going to have to deal on your own. You're going to have to learn on your own. You know what's one of the ironies that I find today? Is that parents, they're all over their children when they're little. Woo, woo, woo. And then when they get older, what happens? Boom, they're gone. Or look at your life. What would have happened if your dad had been there for you? Or maybe you had the privilege, like I had, of having a father that was there for me to be the launching pad. And so David provided the resources for Solomon to succeed. David also provided mentoring for Solomon, his son. So David the father provided mentoring for Solomon the son. Now, how many of you have actually had a relationship with your dad where your dad mentored you? Good, several of you. But do you know that the majority of people are not into that? And most parents, they're not into that. And so at best, parents, fathers, talk down to their children. Here's the way it is, and this is how it is. That's not mentoring. Mentoring is when you have a relationship with a person that you want to build up, and they trust you enough to follow what you say. And so you earn the right to speak into their lives. And so David earned the right to speak into his son's life. Now listen, verse 7, it says, my son. Who's he talking to? Now remember, the Bible is very compact in its writing. And so there's a lot that went on there. David said to Solomon, it was in my heart to build a house. Okay, well, it says in verse 6, he summoned his son and instructed him, okay? And so there's a relationship of communication. He summoned, he instructed. He says, my son, it was in my heart to build a house. In the name. Here's what God put in my heart. This is what I wanted to do, but I can't do it. God's not going to allow me to do it, but you will. Because God said that a son will be born to you. He will be a man of rest. I will give him rest from all of his surrounding enemies. For his name will be what? Solomon. And I will give peace and quiet to Israel during his reign. He is the one who will build a house for my name. He will be my son, and I will be his father. I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever and ever. And so you see that David shares with his son his background with conversations that he had with God, and he transfers the responsibility. He transfers the authority. He transfers the project. And so what he does is he takes time to deal with his son and mentor him into the clarity of the vision that God has given David for his son Solomon. And so you have to take time to build that mentoring relationship. You have to walk with your son. You have to walk with your daughter. And you have to guide them into the vision that God has given you for their lives. God still does that. You have, like David, to do the talking. He summoned, he instructed, he said. You have to communicate with your child. And what happens is that the older the children get, the distance between father and son, father and daughter becomes what? Greater. And that's not a good thing. And so David makes sure that he has this investment of time to do the talking and then the training. Fathers, what have you trained your children for? And so it's on us to train them for the things that they're going to have to face. We have to train them for marriage. What's it going to be like being married? We have to train them for working. What are you going to do at your job? We have to train them how to live a godly life. We have to do the training for our sons and for our daughters. Now, what's the easy cop-out? Let mom do it. But mothers have another role. We're the ones that are the launching pads. And we're the ones that do that best. And so we see that David even puts importance in the name. Okay, what's the name of the kid? I forgot. Solomon. Okay, but I need you to say it in Hebrew. Shlomo. Now, think about it. Shlomo. It sounds a lot like another Hebrew word, right? Shalom. What does shalom mean? Peace. Okay, everybody say shalom. Now, Shlomo. And so Solomon, Shlomo, means a man of peace. And so even the name meant something. And so what David does is that he uses the name of Shlomo to validate the person of his son. Our children need the validation of their fathers. Now, they already know they got their moms. The moms are given. Oh, yeah, honey, I love you. I mean, my wife will do anything for their kids. She'll jump off a bridge for them. But the fathers are the ones that validate them. I want to jump off the bridge. That's fine, but I'm not going to validate you. I'm going to be president of this country. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to validate you. And so fathers retain that privilege, when we are supposed to validate them. And so what David does is he validates his son by giving him the name Shlomo. You are going to be the peaceful one. You're going to be the one that's going to build this temple. You're going to be the one that's going to fulfill the vision of God for the family and for the people. And so this is very important. What are the names of your children? What do they mean? Okay? Now, my wife and I, we played around. We took this seriously. And so my oldest child is named David Nathaniel. David in Hebrew means beloved. Nathaniel means gift of God. So he is a beloved gift of God. And so every time he comes to visit, I have a list this long for my beloved gift of God to fulfill. We love him to death. I love him to death. He comes to the house, I get overjoyed. Why? Because we have validated his name. My daughter's name is Christine Elizabeth. And so Christine means follower of Christ. And Elizabeth means oath of my God. And so it's a follower of Christ that's been strengthened by an oath from God. And so we see her like that, and we make sure she understands that. We validate that in her life. And then the last one, his name is Mark Daniel. Mark, the warrior. Well, he's in the Air Force. So that's pretty good. At least he got a name to go with it. Daniel, God is the one who judges me. And so I'm always telling him, don't worry about what people say. God is the only one that judges you. Who cares about the opinions of people? It's the opinion of God that matters. What I'm saying is I'm using local examples in my life to tell you that you, as a father, validate the person of your child, especially your sons. And so you need to look at that with care because there are shared experiences. There are shared dreams that can only come from the person of the father. They can only come from dad. Now, we think that mom has parenting monopolized, and we kind of stay away. No. We have a very important task of launching our children, and we're the launching pad. So we have to provide the resources. We have to provide the mentoring so that they know what to do. They can pick up the phone and call, hey, Dad. And we have to, like David, provide encouragement for Solomon. Now, you know, it's interesting. One of the things I've noticed is that people who don't get encouragement, they don't give encouragement. And so many dads are beaten down at their jobs or even at their homes, and so they don't encourage their children. Well, guess what? Your children are hanging on to every word of encouragement from dad. You know, moms always do that. Hey, honey, go. You know, moms are always the cheerleaders, but kids don't care about that. They want to hear. They want to hear one word from dad. I know that sounds bad. But the reality is that we all long for that one word from dad. To hear your father say, I love you, is priceless. To hear your father say, hey, well done, is priceless. To hear your father say, hey, great job. To hear your father encourage you is worth a lot. And so, fathers, you need to encourage your children. And so that's what David did. And we see this in the passage that says, now, my son, may the Lord be with you. You know what that is? A blessing. And so David blesses his son, and may you succeed in building the house. Hey, bro, I'm with you. I got your back. Above all, may the Lord give you insight and understanding when he puts you in charge of Israel. So he's saying, hey, buddy, you're going to need this advice. Put this in the back of your head. And so he encourages his son by saying, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. No fear. You cannot imagine the strength of a dad telling the son or the daughter, do not be afraid. We've been through this. We got it. Don't be afraid, okay? And so, let me just end by telling you a story. How did my father serve as my platform? Okay, and I'm thinking, wow, let me tell you that my father did an amazing job in preparing me for the job that I'm doing in this church. I remember I was about 12 years old. My brother was about 10 or 11. And one bright morning, my dad says, hey, we're going to the hospital. We got to go visit Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And so we went to Tulane University Hospital to the ICU. Now, back then, kids could go anywhere. I mean, I don't know why they let us. So we're in ICU, and Mr. Smith, and I've changed his name so that I can protect the innocent, but he was just covered with cables. He had gone through an operation for the heart, and there were, machines everywhere. This is ICU, and there's Mrs. Smith, and she's crying. She's been through a lot with this man, and she sees the struggle that he's having. And so my dad asked, hey, have you eaten? And she said, no. And so they said, oh, well, we're going to take you to have breakfast. And so my dad tells me, hey, David, stand right there, and your brother and I are going to go with Miss Smith, and she's going to have breakfast. And just keep a watch. Okay? And so I'm looking, and so they left, and then, I'm looking at all the lights, all the sounds, beep, 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 beep. But, I've seen enough movies to know when somebody goes flatline. Beep, 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 beep. And I'm going, oh. And so I run out, excuse me. I think we have a problem. And the nurse comes and looks, and all hell broke loose. All I heard was code blue, and boom. And people started, and I'm a kid. I'm just standing there, and I didn't know where to stand, where to go. So people are just whizzing by me, boom, boom, boom. They just, like a tornado over that bed where Mr. Smith was, and it just flatlined. Beep. And that's when my dad and my brother and Mrs. Smith came. That was the first time that I got to experience death face to face. Since then, I have seen death many times. But my father launched me by putting me in situations that had to experience things that most people never experience in their lifetimes. And so my father put me in situations where I have seen the extremes of poverty. I have seen the demonic. I have seen the reality of the worst diseases that you can imagine, like leprosy or liver dysfunction in a child. I have seen the power of addictions. My father took a drunk that had converted, Brother Tulio, and Brother Tulio was processed in my home. He spent like 4 weeks, and my dad dealt with it. So I got to live through how to process an alcoholic and how much fun that is. Brother Tulio survived. I got to see the devastation of divorce. I got to see the beguilement of money. I got to see the brutality of abuse. How many children are invited to go see a contest of abuse? I mean, it's like, why did my dad bring me here? I got to see God do miracles and transform lives. My father was a platform for the ministry that I'm doing today. And I got a practical education that was more important than the one that I got in seminary, because it was hands-on. And so now I'm your pastor, and I have been prepared to deal with whatever we have to go through, because my father was the launching pad that put me in situations that prepared me for ministry. And so in my life, I am praying, and I hope that I can do the best for my children in providing resources for their success, in providing mentoring for their success, and in providing the encouragement that they need to succeed. I think that I've more or less done a pretty good job. Just ask them. They're my testimony. And so today I stand before you because God is calling the fathers in our church, the fathers who are watching us to be the launching pads for our children. And so, Dad, if you're listening to me today and you hear the voice of God calling you out, God wants you to succeed in launching your children into the atmosphere of the adult life in this world that we live in. Look at the example of the Bible. You're not David, okay? I'm not David. You're not Solomon. I'm not Solomon, and my kid's not either. But the God of David, the God of Solomon, is our God. And he is with us, and he is for us. And the God of David, the God of Solomon, is your God. And he will make you into the launching pad that your children need to carry out the vision that he has for your children. So, surprisingly, God is a father, and he is our launching pad. And so, regardless of where you are in life, and many fathers feel frustrated because they feel like we failed. I mean, well, I haven't done this right. Man, it's too late, Well, it's never too late. God is willing to help you. And what you have to do is allow God to be your launching pad. Allow God to provide the resources for your success. Allow God to be the mentor who guides you. Allow God to encourage you. And so, how do we do that? We ask. And so, I'm going to ask you to bow your head. And for a minute, if you are a father, you can't do this without God. And so, please ask God there. Just pray and say, Lord, I need your help to be the launching pad for my children. Give me the wisdom that I need. You could be a dad or not, but you need to launch. You need the rocket to get off the ground. And so this is your chance to say, Lord, please come into my life and launch me. I believe in you. I believe that you sent the Son, Jesus, to die for me and to live for me so that I could have a relationship with you where I could be launched successfully into the life that you have prepared for me. This is your chance. And so, we pray. I'm going to ask you to stand and pray for your dad. Pray for the dad in your life, your husband. Pray for your father. Now, you can say, well, my father's long gone. Well, thank God for your father and for the example that he set. I pray that it was a positive example. It was a negative example. Learn from it. Learn from it and hang on to God. Father God, there are so many things that we don't understand about fatherhood, but one of the things that we know is that we are, as fathers, the launching pads for our children. And so, Father, help us to be that. Help us to be the launching pads for our daughters and our sons. Help us to provide the resources, just like David did for Solomon, that we can provide the resources that they need. And not just the monetary resources, but the relational resources, the resources of dreams and visions. Father, help us to be like David was to Solomon, a mentor. Help us to speak truth into the lives of our children and to gain their respect by our examples. And Father, help us to be encouragers. There is no greater encouragement than one word from a dad to a child. And Father, help us not be negligent in that. Lord, help us to be lavish in our praise for our children. Help us to encourage them in such a way that they can succeed, even if they have to go through failures. Help us to be the platforms from which our children can launch successfully into productive lives as adults. Father, I pray for those that, because of their experience of life, they never got launched the right way. But Lord, you are the Father, and you want to launch us. We are your children. Father, thank you for providing the resources that we need to succeed. Thank you for being our mentor through your word, through your spirit. You speak to us. And thank you for the encouragement. Lord, there's no greater word that I want to hear from my daddy in heaven than when he says, well done. Well done. And so, Father, minister to each person that is hearing us today. Minister to each person that your message is reaching this day, so that they can be the launching pads for their children, and at the same time so that we can be launched through you. This is our prayer in Jesus Christ our Lord.